Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and for the first video of Let's Get Messy Wednesdays. So I am pulling out my Vicki Boutin crayons right here. You can see them on the right hand side, and I've got just like a clear acrylic piece there that I'm scribbling the crayon on and then adding a little bit of water, or maybe it's packaging that I have there. And yes, I am just going to, what Vicki would say, kiss the color onto the layout, onto the paper. I am using Vicki Boutin's foundation paper for this technique. I love that paper for any type of mixed media. It really holds up to water. Even though I'm really not doing a whole lot of water on this one, I just really like that, that foundation paper. Now I'm using kind of a teal color, and I'm going to do the same thing, add a little bit of water, mix it up with my brush to let those pieces dissolve in the water, and I'm going to do some more kissing technique. Now, the one thing with mixed media that I have learned, and here you see I'm adding a little blue, that's one thing I like about the Vicki Boutin crayons, as well as watercolors, is that you can mix colors together to get exactly the shade of color that you're wanting. But what I was saying with mixed media, and the packaging technique in particular, is typically as you're beginning the process, it can tend to look like a hot mess. And that's okay. You just need to keep going, because what you need to remember is that most of the time, a significant portion of the background that you're making is going to be covered up. And so even though it may look like a hot mess, I guarantee you when it's all said and done, it is not going to be that way. So I'm still adding some here, and then I'm going to, I think I'm going to add some pink still. And what I do with the pink, and I think the pink I use a Distress Oxide ink. Oh no, here I'm going to do some more yellow. But you can do this process, if you don't have the Vicki Boutin crayons, you could do it with gelatos, you could do this with watercolors, you could do this with inks by just kind of smushing your ink pad onto some packaging and then spray it with water. So you don't need to use the Vicki Boutin crayons. I love the crayons, and I enjoy using them just because I can really, like I said, get kind of the shade I wanted. Now here I wanted some big splatters, and what I did is I wet down that yellow crayon again and then just made it a little more wet than normal, and then I was kind of just trying to shake those drips onto the layout. So I'm going to continue working on this, and right now, honestly, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is going to look horrible, but I keep going. So now I want to add some pink, but with the pink, I want to just add it where I want it. So I am doing the same thing. I'm pressing my Distress Oxide pad onto that sheet, adding water, and then I'm just applying the pink with a paintbrush, only because I only wanted it in some of those spaces to fill that white space. And if I had done that with the packaging, I wouldn't have had as much control with it that way. So I'm liking how this is turning out, and I know in the back of my mind what my plan is for this as well, which is going to be a little bit more layering on top of this. So now I'm using a gray Distress Oxide ink, and I ended up doing that with some splatters. And this is a stamp. It's actually a Dylusions brick stamp that's 12 inches tall or wide, whatever way you want to look at it. And I am inking that up with some black ink, and I'm just going to put that down right over that where I did the mixed media. Now with this stamp set, it also came with a stencil, and you're going to see me pull the stencil out, and I'm going to lay that over the bricks, and I will use some washi tape to hold it down into place. And then I'm going to pull out some of my Distress Oxide inks, and the round Tim Holtz applicators with the foam sponge. And I'm going to start adding colors just sporadically throughout that layout. I ended up using Evergreen Bow, Spun Sugar, Fossilized Amber, and the gray one, the darker gray one, which I cannot think of the name of it right now. So here I am, and I wanted to be sure that I didn't get the color going into another brick, and because that dauber thing is bigger than these bricks, I used that paper just to kind of make a mask so I wouldn't make a mess everywhere. The one thing I love about Distress Oxides is that due to the pigment, whatever it's made of, you can lay color over other color and you're still going to see it. And I love that about those. One of my favorite things. And so they are perfect to use for stamping or stenciling techniques if you want to go over color that is already on your layout. So keep that in mind. If you want to add another dimension, say you didn't have this big stamp like I have, you could use flower stamps and just stamp those in different colors over the mixed media. You could use stars, any stamp that you have. You could do this same technique and just layer it up to add another, just kind of another more dimension, more interest. Then it just looks like so many layers, and I love how it turned out. I was actually not sure. I had not practiced this technique before I started it. I mean, I'd done the packaging technique, but I wasn't sure what this was going to turn out like, and I absolutely love the end result. So I could stop there with my mixed media and just go ahead and start working on the layout. Here I wanted a few more large gray drops, so I'm adding those on there, and I love those big round drops. And this is how I learned this technique of getting those big kind of messy drops from Vicki Boutin, and that's pretty much how she does it on her layouts. So I absolutely love those big drops. I don't know. I just love them. Anyway, back to the layout. So I'm going to then, when I'm finished up here, I'm going to bring out a stencil and some modeling paste that I have, which is already tinted with like a dark gray and a glitter. And I can't think of the name of it right now. If you're interested in what it is, leave it in the comments below, and I will certainly respond with the name of that. I am not in my scrapbook room right now while I'm doing this voiceover, so I just don't have it in front of me, and I apologize for that. But I certainly can let you know. I did get it at Tuesday Morning, but I have seen the same product in like Michael's or other art stores, so I do believe it's available. Okay, let's see what I am working on right now. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to pull out some of my embellishments in my photo right now. And I think I didn't think of the stenciling part until I had gotten further into the layout. And I'll let you know when that comes up. Well, you will certainly see it. So this collection had a lot of, this was a crepe paper collection. Was it called Good Vibes? Something like that. And it had some really big pieces. But I found a way to use them. I used one as my title, and then I used one to the left that says Good Vibes, and I'm going to do an embellishment cluster there. But if you can see that cut file to the right of the heart, so I have all of this color on the left, and I had no color on the right. So I had this cut file sitting on my desk, and I decided, well, perfect, I will pull some papers from this collection that match the ephemera, and I will do the cut file to bring that color over to that side of the layout. Here's when I decided I wanted more of a contrast behind the photo, and that is when I started with my heart stencil, and here I'm adding the modeling paste, and you can see it right there to your left. Now in that little tub it looks like a light gray, but when it dries it really looks more like almost a black, but I really like how it turned out. And it's got a little bit of like a glitter to it. It's really pretty. I'm going to add that to the top and then to the bottom. I'm not going to add it in the middle because my photo is going to be covering that. And then I'm going to probably set that aside to let it dry. And when I come back, then I'm going to go ahead and finish up all of the embellishing. So using modeling paste and stencils is super, super easy. You can use a credit card. You can see I have just a little plastic palette knife there that I used. My suggestion is just to start out with a smaller amount and then you can add more as you go. Depending on the stencil, depending on the consistency of the paste, you'll just kind of have to have it maybe a little bit of trial and error to get to know the different consistencies of different pastes and different stencils. So that's my suggestion, is if you're going to stencil on a layout, I usually will do a quick stencil of whatever I'm using on a scrap piece of paper before I actually put it on my layout. And that really helps because then I know what I'm dealing with, and I don't, I could have had this whole background done and then I go to add this stencil and it bleeds under the stencil because, the paste wasn't thick enough or something of that nature. And I would have been so upset because I would have essentially ruined the whole layout. So giving a little practice run is always helpful. Unless you're just playing around, then in that case, don't worry about it. But I certainly didn't want to mess up what I had already started. Okay, now I'm going to start bringing in back my photo with my embellishments. And I already went ahead and attached both of those large pieces so I could just move that around as one piece. One quick note, if you are applying ephemera or your photo on top of mixed media, especially modeling paste, you will want to reinforce your adhesive with some wet glue as well. I usually use my ATG, and then I will also add some wet glue on top of that. So I'm going to end up having 3 clusters here, and I just dug through my stash picking out things of colors that would match what was going on here. I had some really old, those heart wood veneers. They're super thin heart wood veneers. I think they might have been from Elle Studio. I can't remember. They're from years ago though. One says #love, one says XOXO, and one says besties. And I'm going to use those in each of the clusters. And then I have some pink rubber pieces from an Amy Tangerine embellishment pack. And I'm going to scatter those in 2 of the clusters, and then I'm going to make sure I bring that pink down to my bottom cluster. And I have to apologize right now that you are not going to see that bottom cluster in the video. I had my camera set incorrectly. Well, this is when I was still learning to do my camera, and you're not going to see that bottom, but stay tuned to the close-ups and you'll be able to see how I brought all of that color from the center of the layout down to the corner. Essentially what I did is I ripped the paper on a diagonal at the corner, and then I layered the pattern papers that I used in the heart. I layered those up in small strips and backed those behind the layout with the ripped corner on top. And I do love how that turned out. Now I'm adding, there's those orange, or not orange, goodness gracious, Tisa. Pink, that's it, pink heart. And I'm trying to audition that to see where I want to put it. And eventually I found the perfect spot, and that's what I did. I'm going to move that wooden heart, because that round pink one fit perfectly right in between that love and tons into that little indented part. And I love how that worked out. And then I could add to that little cluster with the wood heart. Now you see the Amy Tangerine stickers to the left. I have had a hard time using those, but I'm trying to use them as like sprinkling items on my layouts. And this one I was able to use one that said forever, and then use a little like aqua teal camera that I used in one of the clusters as well. Now here's where I'm working on that bottom cluster, but unfortunately you do not see it. Those clear arrow stickers are from my stash that are underneath the title. I think that might have been an old Freckled Fawn item, I'm not sure. But here are my close-ups. If you all have any questions about a technique, if you would like to see a certain technique in mixed media, please leave your comments below and I would be happy to show you some ideas. Thank you so much for stopping by and have a great day.